Thomas, thank you for sitting down with me. We are here in Greenville, South Carolina for the National Association of Plant Breeders annual meeting. You organized last year's meeting.
Mm-hmm.
You're the incoming president of NAPB, so you're kind of changing one job for another.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have to organize the meeting this year,
Mm-hmm.
but you're coming in as president, as chair,
Mm-hmm.
to help lead the board of directors. Is there something you learned organizing last year's meeting that helped prepare you for your role as chair?
Mm-hmm. So I learned during organization of that meeting that there's quite a few committees existing and involved in contributing to that meeting. So it's not just one board that needs to be satisfied, but there's multiple players. And that certainly gave me an introduction into there's many moving parts, and they have their own life, more or less. They have their own structures with chair and vice chair, secretary, and so on. And so I was using this past year as vice president after the conference to talk to the respective committee and working group chairs to understand better what they are doing. And so it's kind of both a leadership group, but there's also a bottom-up kind of effort from various groups contributing to NAPB.
Why did you want to get involved on the board of directors, and then what's your top goal as president, and why?
I got drawn in by Dave Bubeck, and that was by the time that we agreed Iowa State will host last year's meeting. And then when he was president, he was looking for candidate secretaries, and it sounded to me, okay, I can probably do that after going through that annual meeting. I have been chair of the PBCC, Plant Breeding Coordinating Committee, in 2016. And that's the parent organization. It's a smaller group. It's representing the land-grant universities. But I have seen other persons making this transition. Xenia is the best example, who was, I think, in 2019, the chair of PBCC, and then moved on to become NAPB president. And so it seems like something natural to transition from one to this organization.
Tell us about...
And you asked the top
goals, right?
Top goals. So since I'm representative of a land-grant university and public plant breeding, that's where I see my major goal to advocate for public plant breeding at different levels. There's not one public plant breeding. There's something going on at the federal level. There's competitive funding opportunities through USDA NIFA. I think there has been some progress made in the past years. Different programs have grown or have come into existence. Others are becoming better targets, I would say, for plant breeders, like the organic program, ORAE. There's the National Germplasm System, and we will hear a talk later of Peter Bradding. What he usually shows is that there is either flat or slight increases, but when he does inflation adjustment, there's actually a decrease in funding. And that's something that I see is critically low. Also, given climate change occurring, and currently it's enough to manage genetic resources, but I feel if we had additional funding, we could actually characterize in much more detail what is in these collections and could be proactive in developing something targeting problems associated with climate change. And the third area is really the state level. Land-grant universities, there's probably differences between universities, but Iowa State, for example, there has been a decline in number of positions. And one aspect there is I would say, political, more or less support, in case of IO, less support of public universities. And the other is to communicate to experimental station directors about the importance of keeping plant breeding positions and provide arguments.
You grew up in Germany.
Yes.
How did you first get involved in plant breeding? Why did you want to be a plant breeder?
I grew up on a horticultural farm, small family farm. And so I was working with a wide range of vegetable or ornamental plants. We did actually have our own seed production for a few species, viola or brassicacea species, but I wasn't really aware of plant breeding, that we were actually doing kind of plant breeding. And when I started to study ag and later horticulture, I was drawn to genetics and made that my focus. And then later plant breeding, I realized that's really what I wanted to do. And I was early on taking respective courses and working as undergrad helper at the Plant Breeding Institute in Hanover. And that really was a lot of fun and paved the way for me.
Now that I mentioned earlier, you don't have to organize this year's NAPB meeting, what's the highlight for you?
I think what's special about NAPB meetings are the field tours and the pre or after conference tours that one can really get very close and see hands-on, more or less, how breeding is done. It's a different access to understanding what's going on as compared to a presentation. But apart from that, I really also enjoy very much awardee presentations, especially of lifetime or long-term awardee persons that talk about decades of their work. I always am impressed what has been done.
When you think about NAPB as an organization, why should people get involved? Why is it a valuable group to be a part of?
Yeah, I think that plant breeding plays a critical role for addressing societal problems. And while that is the case, there's on the one hand little knowledge that plant breeding exists. I think we are just a small specialized group, and many outside this small group doesn't know what plant breeding is. In some cases, it has a bad reputation. Thinking of home in Germany, when I mention I'm a plant breeder, I'm almost seen as an evil scientist kind of person. So I think there has to be some proactive work that needs to be done for general education. But then also, I think we need NAPB as an association to create our identity, to have exchanges with other colleagues. It's something that I experienced in Germany also, where it's almost like a family gathering. So it's the learning aspect. But it's for sure important to make a case for importance of plant breeding, general public, but also to stakeholders, decision makers, etc.
Thanks for your time, Thomas.
Okay, thank you.